Hi everyone, and welcome to the Space to Feel podcast. I'm Emma, and I'm joined today with Simon Brown. I have known Simon for a couple of years now. We met at our Buddhist centre, and you were there from the very start of my journey with Buddhism and a big part of my meditation journey and everything like that. And yeah, I just think it's wonderful. You're such an inspiring person. And I was really excited to have Simon on this podcast because of the way that he sees the mind. And you're such a deep spiritual practitioner. And you just have this air of like lightness. And I know it's kind of a cliche, but I feel like you do really radiate love. And whenever I see you, you just have this like warmth about you, and you have so many great qualities that are proof that there is so much richness in the spiritual path. And it's great to have you as a friend. So thank you so much for coming on.
How cool is that? Yeah, that's super nice. Yeah, it's really nice things to hear.
Yeah.
Because I like connecting with people, and I've been lucky to connect with you. So interesting. Do you remember having a conversation in a field in Yorkshire about this podcast?
Whoa, I forgot.
Before it even existed, years ago, we were on retreat and we were talking about, both of us actually talking about wanting to express into the world about different things. I know yours was more in line with like therapeutic. And I remember us having a conversation about exploring what love is.
Yes.
And then I was talking about maybe speaking about spiritual matters or whatever they are. And then that was before any of this started. And since then, I have got something off the ground. There's a presence in the world, and I'm able to express something. And here you are. Yeah. Isn't it wonderful? Like, the stars are aligning for us in that regard.
It's amazing. Yeah, looking back to, this podcast is relatively new, and it's an interesting part of life when you push yourself like through something you've never done before, and you're learning, and it can be clunky to begin with, but not letting that stop you and stuff. And I'm curious to hear more about your journey with, obviously you've been, practicing and exploring spirituality for a very long time, but I'm curious how the shift was for you to go from being, the practitioner you are to showing up online and sharing this with the wider world. What was that shift like for you?
Yeah, complicated. I think is the best way to describe it. I think the nature of being a presence online is complicated. It's a complicated thing. And it's because it's complex. If you think about all the different interactions and the way in which people come together online, it's a complex thing, isn't it? And then when you put yourself in the middle of it and then bring your own thoughts and feelings and vulnerabilities to it, which it was always my intention. I wasn't, and I'm not playing a part in the things that I do. I'm not trying to go, oh, look, here's this character and I'm going to entertain. What I'm doing is hoping to say, look, here I am. Life's quite tricky. Do you want to share some experiences with me, But with that's got its own complications, because being vulnerable to thousands of strangers, like, when do you ever do that? In real life, you don't you don't go into a room with 1,000 people and say, like, oh yeah, here's my troubles with PTSD as an example, or here are some of my history with mental health issues, and these are the struggles. You wouldn't do that usually in such a large audience, and yet online that seems to be the way it can go. We can reach a lot of people. That sounds good, doesn't it? It's like, oh, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, reach a lot of people. But we do have to ask the question, were we meant to? Like, were we meant to have such a wide scope in our life? And if we do have that, can we remain healthy? And that's what I've been kind of not struggling with, but it's been it's a working ground. I was speaking to my partner recently about this. It's not straightforward, and I have to revisit it again and again and again, because the nature of, let's say, social media or YouTube or any of these kind of platforms, it's a consumer platform. It's all about more. Really, it's geared up that way. It's about more. But are we well suited to have thousands and thousands of interactions a day with people? I don't know. It seems like probably not. And what effect does it have on us when you've got a dopamine reward center that's looking for safety, and that would normally get safety through direct contact with people and people saying, you're safe, we're here together, there's connection. But then when you hyperstimulate that with the online world, what does 20,000 people liking what you're saying do to you on an emotional level, on a chemical level? Is that, what are the dangers there? And that's kind of what I've been exploring. And I do not take it for granted. And I've been lucky enough to be able to trust my heart, my feelings, to back off when I need to. When I feel myself being drawn into the platform or into the process more and more and more, usually there's like an icky feeling. I know icky's not like a technical word, but it feels like craving, actually. It feels like self-centered craving, like there's an apparent me that wants more of something because I imagine that's going to get me something. It's going to get me some kind of validity, stability, love, connection. But really, I've never really got those things by posting a video online. It's like this, when we're together, that those things come into my life, love, connection and friendship and compassion. So like being able to attune to that sensitivity I would call it a sensitivity of the heart, to know, this is too much. This is affecting me. I'm looking at my phone too much. I'm thinking about content too much. I'm stressed out. I'm worried about where the next content is coming from. Or I'm negatively affected by the comments, those kind of things. And for me, this is relatively new. For young people today, this is their entire life from the age of 4, 5, some people. I mean, that can't be good. That doesn't seem like, for me anyway, it doesn't seem like a healthy way to bring somebody into the world, to expose them to that level of hyperstimulus and scrutiny. It seems dangerous, I would say.
And it's a really interesting thing about here you are exploring the spiritual path in, I wouldn't say a unique way, but a very deep way of you talk a lot about letting go of the self, or what is the self? Is there anything there? Which is something that I think it's hard to comprehend in general, but certainly some people don't come across it or can't quite understand the basic concepts. And you're right, to go online, a self has to be reinforced, because here there are loads of people watching you. So is there a you to watch? So for anyone listening who doesn't quite understand what we're talking about, I don't know if I understand what we're talking about, but could you sort of introduce people to the idea, how you introduced me a few years back, into what that means?
Yeah, I mean, this message isn't new. It's thousands of years old. But actually, it's difficult to, first of all, it's difficult to understand. And also it points beyond understanding. So then you could say it's impossible to understand it. But it is a truth to be realised and experienced. But I've had a bit of practice in trying to explain this in different ways that are very, very simple. So maybe I could try. Great. And it never goes super well, but I think it's overcomplicated quite a lot. And also, if you've come across kind of spirituality or like Buddhism, non-dualism, those kind of things, there's a lot of people talking a lot of complicated stuff. And I think it's important to be able to clarify and simplify. So the best way is not the best way, but one way would be, most of us, most of the time, are stuck in narrative. There is, and we can probably feel like you are a person, like a discrete person, separate from everyone else and everything else, moving from the past, back there somewhere, to the future, over there somewhere, on this train. And actually that process of being this discrete, separate self is interacting with other separate things, like a separate Emma, for instance. So we bump into each other, and then either we kind of give a little bit or we take a bit. But I guess what I'm saying is that's how we operate most of the time, but it can be seen that all of that is the mind. All of it. That entire way of seeing the world is just, well, it's something we've inherited, actually. We've inherited it from decades, thousands of years, millennia of people believing that's the case. And I guess the message that I'm kind of communicating is that's not all we are. So it's not that complicated. It's like, okay, well, there's that, there is that. It's a way of seeing the world. Could call it a point of view. But we're more than that. We're much more than that. And when we're able to let go of that point of view so strongly, and then you could say, well, that point of view is self-centered. It's almost like entirely reflective around this imagined me, like there's me and everything else. But when we're able to let go of that point of view and experience what more we are, then we feel less separate. And in my life, when I felt less separate, I felt connected. I felt more love. I felt more alive, So just on a practical level, they're the kind of things that I want. I kind of want to feel a bit more alive, a bit more, available to love and connection. And when I'm less really bound up in a tight me, and I'm more kind of open to the experience of now without trying to protect myself, then that seems to be a bit more available, So that's kind of a simplish way of talking about it. But it's tricky, isn't it? Because when we try to imagine what that is or contextualize what I've just said, we can only do it through, at certain points, we can only do it through the self. We can only do it through my point of view. So actually, it's kind of understandable, but there's a limit to which we can understand it. And this is why I said it's experiential. Because if we are interested in this, we can explore it, and we can explore it in experience. And then at some point, it becomes known and felt that me that I thought I was is definitely not the truth of what this is. And if you notice, I didn't say the truth of what I am, because I think even that I aming is almost like the seed, the kernel from which the self grows. It's like, oh, I'm this and you're that, or this is me and that's mine, and you can see with that, there's like a grabbing, a grasping onto the things of life. And they can be personalities, jobs, you could say internet fame, podcasts, microphones, whatever it is. If we say, oh, that's mine, that's me, then we try to grab it, don't we? But I have not yet come across a single thing in my life that doesn't go. Everything comes and goes. Everything. That's these words, these ideas, these objects, the phenomena of life, the play of life, it comes and it goes. And that's naturally how it is. But when we're trying to hold on to it, when it goes, it hurts. It's like, no, I was relying on that. That job that I really needed. I mean, a great example would be the fires in LA recently. What a tragic and really heart-moving loss for so many people. And yet that's how things go. That is how things go. Like, that's not to say that I don't have a heart full of compassion for all the people that have lost things, but that's exactly how it goes. We don't know what will happen a moment from now, let alone 10 years from now. We cannot rely upon these things like a house to keep us safe. We just don't know what's going to happen.
I have a question around that, though.
Of course.
Because I'm trying to think as well from like anyone listening's point of view. And for example, you mentioned the LA fires, or someone could be going through grief right now. They've lost a loved one, or someone who is experiencing deep pain and grief, and everything they've known, everything they've clinged to for safety has gone. They're experiencing heartbreak, grief.
Totally.
How do you think it matches up feeling these overwhelming, all-encompassing, engulfing emotions that when you're in the depths of them, you don't feel like you know how to get out of that. You just have to feel it, or time will heal, or whatever that situation is. How do you hold that and that's okay, that's how things go? How do you hold both
What a
at the
beautiful
same
question.
time?
And I guess you've just asked the central question of the spiritual life. How do you do it? It's hard, isn't it? Like it's not straightforward. And I think the heart, in my experience, I say the heart. When I say the heart, what I'm referring to is that deep intuitive emotional capacity that we've got to feel and connect with each other. And that open heart, the more we're able to open this faculty, the more we're able to let it lead us and to guide us. So actually, we can grieve. We can grieve deeply for the things that we've lost. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to suffer. We don't have to suffer any more than the grief that's apparent. So when we lose, death's a great example. We've gone straight into death, haven't we? All right, let's go. No, but part of being a human being is that we're all going to die, and everyone's going to die. That's just the nature of it. That's the truth, isn't it? And we can see that truth again and again. But when we deny that truth, then actually we try to build a life of security against that. And again, I don't know anybody who's been successful at doing that. Everybody's gone. Everybody has come and it's gone. And that's the way it is. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that we don't grieve for the loss of loved ones, but there's a different type of grief that's available to us, which isn't so self-centered and psychological. It's much more emotional and energetic. I've been lucky enough to feel that recently with the passing of a loved one. And it was profound. It was deeply, deeply, deeply moving. Like it felt like, this might sound a little bit hippie-ish, but it felt like all the love in the universe was showing up for the passing of my loved one. Through this, it was just like, oh my God, the heart was shattered into a million pieces.
And it felt like love.
Totally. It felt, there was undeniable amount of love, but it hurt. And that's the tricky thing, isn't it? If we're trying to avoid pain, then we can never open up to the love of acceptance. I had this experience recently, and we all have this experience of grief. But when we're trying to deny the loss, then we suffer. And I know so many people, and I've been in this situation myself with the passing of my mother about 9 years ago. I wasn't able to open my heart to that degree. And psychologically, I tried to manage it, through whatever coping mechanisms this person, this self, you could say, had. Like, okay, well, I'm me, and how do I deal with this? It was all like plans and strategies, and a little bit of grief would pop up, but then it'd be like, oh no, I'll push that back down. And there wasn't an open, free flowing of that. And it was tough. It took years and years and years. And I said, to some degree, it's still ongoing, of the truth of the emotion of that to show itself. Whereas recently, with the passing of my dear friend, there was none of that. There was no holding back. There were no gates. There were no barriers. It was just like the entire body was like, woof, like thrown into this world of, well, I would say grief, but not grief as a negative. It felt like, even though it was so painful and so loving and so intense, I could tell very clearly there wasn't a single negative aspect to the experience. It was entirely positive.
Wow.
And hard. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's tricky to talk like that, because that's not necessarily the way we experience life, is it? But we can.
But also that space that you were able to create to allow all these emotions to pass through, I think that requires a level of safety, of maybe emotional infrastructure that is in place. And I think in a practical sense, also the time to be able to do that is so... I think there are a lot of components so many components to be able to get into a place where you can just feel the love from something, very sad happening. And I think in terms of building that resilience, that confidence that you can feel, I think that's what a lot of people are scared to feel. And I think there's something underlying that subconsciously, where there's a part of us that feels we're not ready to feel, or we couldn't handle it if we felt everything that was there to feel. So what I'm trying to think, if we have, listeners who maybe feel a bit disconnected, or, me at the moment where I am, I'm like kind of battling burnout, sort of laying in and out the cusp of it. And sometimes the feelings are too overwhelming and in a way not practical to feel, because we've got this fight or flight just to get through what we need to get through. But once we're able to create space and we think, I'm ready to feel better now, I'm ready to look at the things, I'm ready to not run away from them, what would you advise people if that is feeling too scary or daunting to do?
Yeah, beautifully put. I love what you said there. You touched on quite a lot of different things, so I think there's a few things to bring out. What I really like, so I'm gonna kind of answer the question, but maybe pick on a few different threads. So there's a belief that this is too much to feel. Often, like you said, a lot of the times there's a belief that I won't be able to take that. I would say it's that belief, along with what I would call maybe mind identification or self-centered thought, this belief that we are this self and everything's got to be mitigated through me planning in the future, having reference, all of that stuff that I kind of pointed to at the beginning. It's that drives deep suffering in us. And in my experience, anxiety, I would say an anxiety disorder. I'm not a clinician, I'm not a professional in that regard, but I've suffered with anxiety in the past. What became really clear is anxiety of the mind is really the mind trying to keep us safe from the feelings, because it feels, or there's a belief that these feelings are not safe to feel. And actually, while stuck in anxiety, and I'm doing this, and the reason I'm doing this is because actually that's kind of how anxiety feels. It's like this very shallow way of being that's very spiky, very uncomfortable, very cerebral, but it doesn't seem to have a lot of depth. It's like this constant, and those kind of, maybe not even that much emotive, but this like stress, continual stress. And I know that feeling so deeply and so well, but it's very, it's like a thin bandwidth of living. And it kind of relies upon the fact that it believes, this anxious way of viewing the world, or the self-centered mind believes, I can't feel this. But actually, it's been my experience that it's only by feeling this can we let go of our anxieties. That's the only way. Now, that can't come all at once, because like you said, we need to build capacity. Me just saying that to you, to anybody else, you're not going to believe me. Why would you believe me? I'm a stranger. But actually, we can start to gently introduce that into our lives. And like you said, support. Well, actually, one of the great ways to do that is to build a support network, to get as much support from family, friends, and professionals as we can. So that part of us that feels so tender, so lost, in so much pain that we can't even look at it. If that part of us feels supported, then we're much more likely to be able to see what it wants to show us. Or it feels like it is much more likely, that part of us is much more likely to be revealed. Because it's like, actually, I feel safe enough now that I say I, but like this emotional depth, you could call it an emotional wound or whatever it is. Let's say sorrow. We'll just use a name. Say deep sorrow that I've never really fully explored. It feels supported enough that it'll start pouring into our experience. Now, when that happens, we may notice the mind wanting to clamp it shut and go, oh my God, that's too much. And this is why when we've got support, it's less likely to be a problem. We can speak to others about that. We can engage in a process like this, maybe. Or we can engage in a process with a therapist or a person-centered therapist, or maybe an IFS coach, internal family systems coach, or someone who's got a lot of experience in helping people get through this kind of, this difficulty and support them. So it doesn't quite answer your question, but I think having a support network is important. Noticing when the time's right to communicate, and then when it is, trusting that we can communicate with those around us. So the flip side is no support network, feeling isolated, feeling alone, stuck in anxiety. Because that's the opposite. It's like I don't have the resources. Everything around me is a threat. I don't know how to communicate this. I don't even know how to feel this. I just feel terrible.
It's like a lack of trust in others and yourself and what you're experiencing.
And there's not even the ability to have the perspective to see that. That's a tricky thing with like this anxious mindset. We're lost inside it, aren't we? We are it, you could say. We just feel like this broken, anxious person. But like I said at the beginning, we are more than that. We're always more than that. I've had this experience in my life, very, very deeply. I've been lost in an anxious way of being, an anxious way of living, with no access to feelings really at all, seemingly, which is the scary thing. So now I'm very, very grateful to say that mental health is a big part of my life. Mental illness isn't. I don't suffer with mental illness, but I have in the past. And it was really deeply challenging. And I remember, during that time, it's not like I had any instinct about what I just said. It was just lost. I just felt lost and overwhelmed. I wouldn't even have used the word overwhelmed, scared. Like I wouldn't, because overwhelmed is probably language I would use now to say, oh, my nervous system or feelings are overwhelmed. But in those moments of deep anxiety and depression, it's like, no, just terrified and lost. Yeah, and trying to do anything possible to distract myself from that. So it took a long time to be able to trust that there's another way of being. And it does kind of run alongside, you could say, the spiritual path or the path of awakening that I touched on before. Like a movement from this anxious mind into this living, feeling body. Those two things seem to correlate with each other. And this experience of the living, feeling body, it's just much richer. Like just on a basic level, it's much richer than being lost and stuck in that tiny little bandwidth of being,
it's really interesting.
Stressy Simon, being open to, a reservoir of feelings, emotions and experiences. Yeah, it's like Technicolor. And that's beautiful. Yeah. It's not easy.
Yeah, and I remember having a conversation with my sister about meditation. And she's someone who's never meditated before. Maybe some listeners listening to this haven't meditated before. And I was trying to convey what it's like to spend time with yourself in that way. Or maybe yourself isn't the right word for it. But in this moment and seeing what is happening in this moment and the depth of, I don't know if we want to go into terms like a soulfulness or exploring the more that there is here to someone, like trying to explain that to someone who hasn't experienced that, hasn't had a window into that sort of world. And I can sort of see how people who aren't at all, haven't had the conditions to be introduced to this, can see this as woo-woo or airy-fairy but where's the data? Where are the results? And I think it's interesting over the years of being friends with you, I've asked you questions like, why does this happen? And what do I do when this happens? And you've always had just the most beautiful response of, what do you think? What is your experience?
Total avoidance.
There has been an avoidance, but also this quality of asking me to trust myself and asking me to try things out for myself. And you keep saying I can give you my answer, but it's not maybe going to be your answer. And I think so much of society up until this point, I guess, in my life, or certainly throughout school and the education system, tells you the right and wrong thing. And if you have ideas, it's like, well, does it fit this system? And is it productive? And does it agree with other people's? And I think you've been one of the influences that has just said, well, you? What do you think? What's your experience? And I think self-belief is such a big part of the spiritual journey, because I see people getting lost, and you find something that works for you, great, hone in on that, whether it's a form of religion or a method of spirituality, whatever it is. You become sort of a preacher, you just concentrate fully on that as if that's going to get you all the answers. And I quite enjoy this, like trusting your intuition. It's okay to follow something, it's okay to explore something different. But I think, it's beautiful that you always, as annoying as it is sometimes, because I'm like, just tell me. That's something that's really been helpful. And I wonder if someone doesn't have that person to keep reminding you that you do have the answers within you, how, again, a question, but I'm curious your thoughts. How maybe has your experience been in growing confidence in yourself that it's okay to follow the path that you're following?
So there is a direct relationship between letting go of the self that doubts. So what I talked about before is this, it's a mental construct really, but it's deeply rooted in this being, this body-mind. But the mental construct is, that I'm me and you're you. It's the kind of thing that I talked about before. But we think that's going to give us some kind of security that if I rely upon that, then I'm going to get safety or success or everlasting happiness in the realm of things and stuff and thoughts and ideas. And especially, and this is much more prevalent in the last 200 or 300 years, really. It wasn't as prevalent prior to that. But this idea that we can reduce all of life to this kind of understandable thing, if I just get enough data and arrange it in a certain way, then that's it. I'll know everything and it'll be fine. But again, it doesn't seem to work like that, because as soon as I've got everything arranged just right, the world changes. It's like, oh no, I want it to come back. And then you just spend time again in that realm of self and other and thoughts and trying to get, I was like, you mentioned it there, maybe I picked the wrong religion. Maybe I picked the wrong thing to read. But there's something out there that's I'm going to read it, I'm going to understand it, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to sort it out. And when I've got it, then I'll get it. So we find a different thing. And that's often the path for many people. It has been for me. You start off with maybe science or politics, activism. It's like, not only does political activism sound good, like it's interesting and it's looking at the world, but I can be good. I can actually like stand on the side of justice or something. But then often we realise, that doesn't quite satisfy me on the deepest levels as well. So you kind of keep looking. I guess on a journey of awakening, if you want to call it that, I'll call it that, we're waking up from that entire mechanism, that entire belief that I can get something that will fix this permanently. That's all a delusion, really. That doesn't mean to say it's not useful in some instances, but it'll never make us permanently happy. So what we're looking to do is wake up from that delusion into the experience of being. And that experience of being is always this. It's always right here. This is it. You might not know that it's going on, but it is what's happening. And really, this experience, you can't really say an awful lot about it. It can be viscerally felt. Like, and I like to do this often with people that I work with, like just stamp your feet on the floor right now and feel your feet on the floor. Okay, describe that. Is there any description that will come close to that experience? And we can see clearly, no, that's not the case. Yet in that moment, when I was, feeling my feet on the floor, it was just like this, wasn't it? That's the way it was. So we're waking up to a truth of being in a moment, as opposed to an imagined truth that I'm going to get in the future, that's going to say a certain way. So, but like you said, you talked about doubt, didn't you? And belief in your self-belief. Well, what about we just let go of the belief in a self and just come into the moment. Does this moment need self-belief as it is right now? And that's something we can ask. And we might hear the mind go, yeah, oh, I need to trust this. I need to know what to trust. And I get it. That's what the mind wants to do. It's looking for safety. But the invitation is always, okay, well, what else is there? So the mind is going to do its thing. It's going to contextualize. It's going to paint a picture. It's going to say it's like this and you need this or you don't need that. More of this, less of that. Danger, danger. Pleasure, pleasure. Whatever it is, it's going to play that game of opposites. But we can always invite, okay, well, that's going on. What else is here right now? And then we start to realize there's much more, not just a bit more. There's much more to this than that self-centered narrative of mind. There's much more. And we feel it every moment, actually. So I think that doesn't answer your question at all, maybe. But it kind of does, because what it means is that actually the more we let go of that doubting self, the more that the truth of the moment becomes apparent. It's just apparent. It's undeniably like this. We can deny the thoughts and the context of the mind. How can you deny the experience of this moment unfolding just as it is? And what's interesting is that what we start to realize is that relates very deeply to love, at least in my experience, very deeply to unconditional love. In my experience, this experience of now unfiltered, without a self, trying to contextualize, just an opening, accepting, truthful knowing of this is a loving experience.
That's beautiful. And before we delve into more of this, you've talked a lot about the mind and thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think a big, more like visceral breakthrough that I had in my journey was not identifying with the mind. But before I had the conditions to read about it, to be around people talking about it, and as well, like in my counseling context and people I've met and talked about this, it's not I guess a known thing, but unless someone invites you to think about it, it's really hard to see that there's a you beyond your thoughts.
Yes.
And that your thoughts are not inherently you, and all the sort of clinging that we've talked about, that I want this, I want that.
It's so believable,
isn't it? It can feel like it's us wanting. And
totally.
So it's beautiful hearing you talk about, the mind is going to do this thing, but that there's a deeper truth. And I think that's a very maybe gentle thing that people need to start seeing for themselves to start exploring that. But do you remember your point when you started seeing your mind, or was it like a gradual thing?
Yeah, it's kind of gradual. I remember when I look back now at my life, there's always been like a bit of like friction. What I mean by friction is there's been a deep knowing that's not really the truth of how it is, this way that my mind was trying to contextualize all the time, trying to keep me locked in the character of thought. And often because that character of thought was trying to get validation, trying to be better at something, judging myself, and a lot of people will have those experiences of being really self-critical or critical of others, trying to get more of something, that kind of thing. But when I look back now, I'm able to see, oh yeah, I always kind of knew that was bullshit, really. I always kind of knew that doesn't feel so natural, but everybody's doing it. And you can see everybody doing it, and everybody's telling you to do it. So it's like, well, I need to do that then. So if you think about how can you think about when I was? When we think about when we were young children, I mean, we all have different experiences, but we've all had an experience of where that wasn't so dominant. Normally around the ages of like 5, when we get enough presence to be alive, we're not just a toddler. We're not bound by social convention, the self that everybody has inherited. And I can feel back into like, oh yeah, it was way lighter then. It was much more apparent what was going on in the body and the experience. But I could see around me, but everyone's doing this thing. So, okay, I need to do that thing. But I was terrible at it. I was like really bad at it. And what I mean by that is you can see people in the world that are very self-assured and charismatic. They're like good at the game of self. My business leaders, they're very kind of suave or whatever.
Good at the game of self.
Yeah, but I was shite at it, like totally rubbish.
And I guess you're talking about fitting the framework of society and how to be successful in society's eyes.
Yeah, I mean, we cannot extricate ourselves from that because that is the world in which we've grown. So whatever the culture of your development is, that's who you become ultimately.
Yeah.
Like it's all of the messages, every single word that you've heard is from the context of that. It's got it baked into the culture. So in the West and in the UK and in the States, it's like this consumer culture, so which is, it's almost like self-centered mind identification on steroids, isn't it? Consumer culture is not only are you separate, you need to be scared of everyone else and get more stuff. Because the only way you're going to be safe from everyone else if you have more stuff is like, oh, I need more stuff. And then you continue to feel, well, that's not working. But then the messages are, that's because you're not going to write stuff. Have you tried this thing? Have you tried that thing? So yeah, the societal impact, it's there. It's bubbling underneath all of the time. So I guess I always kind of knew somewhere that this wasn't it. This wasn't what we were destined for as beings. We're much more than this. But what choice do you have? You just play the game. You don't have. It's not like I consciously played the game. I was, I was going to say lured into it. Maybe lured is the right word. But you're indoctrinated into being that way. But then at a certain point, if we're lucky, it could be a conversation like this. You could pick up. For me, it was picking up a text, or actually receiving a tape from a mum about meditation when I was 17 years old. But she could kind of see that I was struggling to do this thing called modern living. I just kind of couldn't get it right, and I was suffering quite a lot. And this tape was all about body relaxation. And it was beautiful. It was my first introduction to meditation, and I put it on, and almost immediately I realized, oh, this is different. There's something about this way of being that it's inviting, which is different from everything I've tried so far. I've tried to be that guy who does the stuff and is successful and gets validation, and wins at life. And it doesn't feel right. Whereas this, what's being opened here, which is really simple, really gentle exploration of the felt experience, it felt of a different order. So I think when I was 17, that was when I received that message. I say that message, it wasn't a message as such, but that invitation to investigate experience, that was like, oh, something's come alive here. And it wasn't like suddenly, oh, well, that's it. I don't need to be lost in thoughts and self anymore. It wasn't that. But it's like a door opened. A door that I didn't even know was there. It's like, oh, have you tried looking in this direction? Like, oh, wow, this is mysterious and vast and weird. This isn't feeling lost in a very small world of me and everyone else. This is something else, So that was when it kind of happened.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and again, I am aware that I might not be fully answering your questions. I am sorry.
No, but that's okay. And I think meditation is a great way to start seeing the mind, because I think there's quite a misconception about meditation that if you get distracted, you're doing it wrong.
Yes, exactly.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think some people tell me, oh, I tried meditating, but I just can't do it. I can't concentrate. It's too hard, or I fall asleep, or I get bored, or... And there can be instances like that are off-putting when you think there's a right way to do it, and I'm not managing to do it, so I feel worse because I can't quite figure it out. And obviously for anyone listening, if you don't meditate, the point is not to not have thoughts, right? My experience is the point is to see that thoughts are happening and try to come back to the moment and not adding suffering into your experience by saying, oh, I can't stop the thoughts, and you get agitated. But it's, oh, I've seen thoughts. I've been able to see it. So I'm aware of it, and now I can decide what I want to do again. Yeah. And I started feeling this thread of it feels out of my control, but when I notice it, I have a choice that I can make. Whereas when you're just captured in thought process and in mind, you're kind of at, at the, I was going to say the peril, that's not the right word, the control, the thread, of just the nature of being human, which is to have a thinking mind, but there's nothing wrong from that happening.
Well, it's a gift, isn't it? It's a beautiful gift, the thinking mind. And it might sound a bit odd considering all I've just said about being trapped in a thought-based way of living. That can sound like, oh, well, the mind's bad. Thoughts are bad. Like, no, thoughts are natural, but it's just not what we are. So then with that comes an invitation, well, what are we? More than that. So, the cognitive mind is a beautiful gift that we've got. It allows us to do this. Try operating cameras and recording sound without thoughts, without a way to contextualize it all, without the people making the software in order to do the recording. It doesn't work. It's not possible. So that's the gift of the mind, isn't it? It allows us to interact with the world in a very specific way. But also, when we take ourselves to be that, it's like, no, I'm that thought process. It's like, well, we're missing out on well-being, I would say, on a deep, deep sense of connection and well-being. Because when we feel and know that we're more than our thoughts and ourself, we feel and know life. Don't we? We feel life. You feel alive. And we notice that, oh, look, we're alive. It's not it's not I'm life. It's we are living.
Yeah.
There's actually not really any separation I can find between me and you.
Yeah.
Other than a thought about it. So I can say, oh yeah, you're Emma, you're different to me because you're over there. Okay, but without any thoughts or words attached, how does that feel? What's the experience of us together? And it just feels like together. And experience. It doesn't feel like, disconnection. In fact, it feels, deeply connected.
And I love what you say about this is life. Like, life isn't somewhere else. Like, this is life. And I remember a really funny moment with you when I was going through a breakup at the time, and I was talking about things that bring me joy, and you're wanting to do more of them, and I thought, deep conversations, I love it, and they just make me feel so alive. And you just go, what's not alive about this moment? And there was nothing special about that moment. There wasn't any spectacular scenery. I know. That's the kind of stuff you say to me, but I love it. This reminder that this is life, to feel what it is to be alive in every moment, and even challenging me on things like that, like, why isn't it spectacular? And when you look around and you have the reminders, and at some point you're able to remind yourself of all the gratitude and the practice and the presence, it's so beautiful.
It can be. It can also be really, really, really challenging. And that's important to notice as well. Because, life is unbound. It doesn't follow, this experience doesn't follow any rules. When we try to put limits and boundaries on it is when we suffer. And often we try to make it concrete, stable, secure, fixed. And we see it so clearly. It just doesn't work like that. It unfolds, doesn't it? It's an unfolding process. So the more we're able to trust that unfolding, it seems that the more alive we feel. But the tricky thing is, it takes some subtlety. It does take a bit of practice to be able to feel, that gratitude and special, not specialness, but the richness of life, because it doesn't shout at you. It does at some points. You might get married. And in that moment, on a day, there's not many thoughts in your mind. You're not lost in thought. You're in the experience of getting married. And there's just love and joy and connection. It's like, oh, this is sensational. This is remarkable. but then there's a day after. It's like, oh, this isn't so remarkable. Okay, so I don't need to pay attention to it. So now let's get back to in the mind, thinking about what's in the future, what's in the past. Let's move away from this because this just seems kind of boring. And that's what the mind will, I say the mind like it's a thing, but the thought process, it kind of goes like that, doesn't it? It wants to say, well, there's not much going on. Right, well, let's find something that's going on. But again, is that true? Right now, is it true to say, and this is for anybody, if you feel into your experience, is it true to say there's not much going on? Is there any truth other than a thought about that? So then we invite ourselves, well, how do we feel what's going on right now? And that takes subtlety, because it's a subtle experience. It's not like, so I can hear the air conditioning unit in this room, but that's not jumping out. It's very, very quiet. It's just kind of bubbling away in the background, but it's part of this experience and it's rich and it's got texture and nuance to it. But I can't experience that unless I'm open, awake, listening, and not listening for it, just listening. If we're stuck in here all the time going, what's next? Right, I need to get a good answer for Emma to make sure that I look good and the podcast goes well. If I'm stuck there, then the experience of now doesn't really jump out at me. So yeah, I guess I'm trying to say that it takes a bit of practice, gentle practice, and this is where meditation can come in, amongst other things. Like going for a walk's pretty good. Like, we often think that meditation's on the cushion, but actually going for a walk and feeling your feet on the ground, just try and do that. Just remind yourself again and again, oh yeah, feet on the ground. That's it. That's all we need often. Just a continual intention to feel the moment. And you'll be surprised how over time, if you do it regularly, your experience begins to change. Something came to me yesterday, just like 2 words that you can use in any experience or any moment to help you get more grounded in the moment. And I noticed it because I was walking through the city centre and I noticed a lot of people lost in thought. You can see they're lost in thought. Yeah. You can see this kind of like dazed looking away of life and going, and they're almost like chatting to themselves, going, and they don't notice cars and traffic, and they go, oh, like they're shocked by life. So how do you counter that? Because it's a habit. It's just a habit. It's a habit of the mind to be stuck in thought. So how do you counter that? Well, look up. Just look up. Do it now. Look up. Look up. And you realize, oh, it's not just this. We're not just in this podcast world, or I'm not just in Sainsbury's. I'm not just getting shopping. Look up. And you cannot help be shown, oh, there's more to this than just this narrow focus. And I just thought, what a beautiful thing. Like just that intention. Just remind yourself to look up. Every moment, why not? As much as you can. Walking down the street, look up. Don't just look at your feet. Look around. Look at the world. And maybe, if you did that regularly enough, it might just interrupt that habit of mind that goes, no, pull away. It might just be enough to go, oh, I don't need to follow that train of thought. Look, there's all this.
Yeah.
It's just an example. But being playful with simple things can be really, really helpful. Like I said, sensations of feet on the floor, encouraging yourself to look at the environment. These things can awake something in us quite naturally.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I had a moment where I remember being like really stressed driving on the motorway and noticing that my mind was where I was going, or my mind was in my to-do list and in my plans. And I had a moment of seeing how stressed I was. So I was, in the thought. Then I managed to like distance myself from the thought to realizing that that's going on. And then I look around my car and I see that I have a car, and I'm not just looking through like
we've still not approached traffic yet. So far that's gone on. There's no awareness of traffic. We've gone from thought to outside of thought to in the car. It's like, okay, well, we're driving. But you can see how these distractions, they can be not just bad for our health as in like they can cause us to stress a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They can have an impact on the world at large. You know, if we're not paying attention to what we're doing when we're driving a vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
what's the risk there? It's kind of high, isn't it?
And also, I think in being stuck in, you know, whether it's hatred or you're stuck in a narrative where, you know, the world is unfair, where people are disconnected, and that's how you see the world, that's your framework of viewing, then without being able to zoom out that there is so much more than that, you hurt people around you, or you're not connected to that love. And I know we mentioned it early on, but it's so beautiful, the sort of idea that the more present you are, the more love just appears, or love comes all around. And, you know, the direct opposite of that is when you're so stressed, in thought, burnt out, or going through grief, or whatever the situation is, you can't be where your feet are. And I wonder if you can say a bit more about love. And we had a beautiful conversation about it on that retreat, talking about healthy love and what it means, and not depending and just being open and
not depending. What a beautiful, beautiful saying. Yeah, and it might seem like such a simple couple of words, that not depending, but that as a spiritual, I say a spiritual, as an inquiry, a question into life, it can open up so much. What is there in this moment that does not depend? Because actually we can kind of see that thoughts depend on other thoughts. Like apparently feelings depend upon feelings. This bottle seems to depend upon a plastic manufacturer, you know. But is there a part of this experience right now that isn't dependent, that's not conditional? So when we talk about love, at least when I talk about love, I'm talking about unconditional love. Now, unconditional love's kind of got like, there's ideas about it, as in, oh, it's like this. But really, unconditional love is opening to something that isn't dependent upon conditions. It's not a love that only shows up when it's like this or when it's like that. It's a love that is always available. And that can never really be the love that we try to get from someone else. That doesn't mean we can't receive love from other people, but actually the love that really we're looking for, the deep, deep love that transforms us and opens a heart, is the love that's already here, available to us. Now, that's easy to say when you're feeling lost and alone and in pain. That just sounds like a lie. There is no love here. It's like, no, this guy's talking like total shit. He doesn't know what it's like. I've been there. I know what it's like to feel so far away from love. But maybe our ideas of what love is are, well, they're just not accurate. You know, we try to, so if I say unconditional love, we paint a picture of this magical, ethereal, incredible unicorns flying on rainbows kind of thing, you know. But maybe it's much simpler than that. Maybe unconditional love is just a simple moment by moment acceptance of the way things are. That's it. Because when I look for love in life, I don't want love that only shows up in certain conditions. I don't want love that will only accept me a certain way. Really, when I hurt, I want something like a love that fully accepts me no matter what. No matter what. In every condition, in every circumstance, no matter what I've done, it says, I'm here for you. I love you. I don't judge you. That's the kind of love that deeply I want. And I've never found that in another human. That doesn't mean to say we can't love each other from that place of unconditional love. But what I'm craving is not what you've got. That deep healing. What I'm craving is a love that is here. It's available right now. You know, it's not dependent upon the condition of another person being there. It's not dependent upon any conditions. It's just always accepting me as I am. And yeah, we can open to that. We can open that to that a little bit at a time, really. So one way could be, how can I be in this moment without trying to get rid of it? Like, that's a simple thing. So there's a feeling. Is it possible to just let that feeling be there and just say, you know what, for 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, we'll start with 2 minutes. Can I just accept and allow that feeling to be here? Then give yourself the out of saying, after that 2 minutes, I can push it away like I normally do. But for 2 minutes, I'm just going to say, yeah, you can be here.
Mm.
And is that an access to love?
Mm.
Is that a way of opening the heart very gently to experience?
Mm.
I mean, this is what we can explore. In my experience, it is. It definitely is access to love. One of my teachers once said, let me get this right, love or unconditional love is the non-abiding in aversion.
Explain that.
So what I mean by that, so instead of abiding in aversion, so being in avertive practice is trying to get rid of stuff, basically. So most of the time we avert ourselves from something like, oh no, not that, not that, not that. And we abide in that pushing away. Don't we? Like, oh, that's too much. I need to protect myself and avert danger. So what would it be like to just not abide in aversion? So recognize, oh, well, there's me trying to manage the world and push it all away. What would it be like to just not stay there? Not stay in a defensive position where I'm trying to push everything away. Can I do that for 1 minute? And again, just start really small. And it's interesting, that doesn't sound like love, does it, when you put it that way? It sounds like, oh, a little practice that I can do, okay. And that was really helpful for me because I was convinced that I am unlovable and cannot love. I was convinced. So if someone's saying open to love, I'm like, no, that's not possible. But if someone's saying, can you just, open to not abiding in that pushing away, just for a minute, it's like, oh yeah, I could do that. That's like a thing that I can maybe practice.
Like a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like something that I can maybe work with because the heart wasn't quite ready to open to openness.
Yeah.
But over time, what I felt was the more time I was abiding in availability and not abiding in aversion, the more time my heart spent being open. It was like a kind of like a sniper movement of love. Like surreptitious
That's so funny.
love opening. Yeah, but sometimes that's what it takes, because saying to someone where there's no love in their life, just open to unconditional love. You're just like, no, that's not a thing.
And it's really, I think part of the reason why it's so remarkable hearing you talk about these topics is, at least from a woman's point of view, having a healed man who is in touch with feelings, is open to feelings, is embracing feelings, when I think, this is a generalization. Obviously, there are lots of men, thankfully, who are able to be with that. But I think part of the female experience is quite a fear when it comes to interacting and trusting people who don't or haven't explored that capacity for open-heartedness and embracing of every emotion, and a sort of black and white approach. And I think it's really nice to, hear from people like you who have been on their own journey, who are curious about their experience and who trust themselves to look inwards. And
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Only because, how does that make you feel then when you have that experience? So like you feel, sounds like you're saying you feel like a movement to try and connect on a deeper level. And you're having the experience of meeting, in this instance, men that shut you down, that are not available. So how does that make you feel? What effect does that have on you?
Yeah, I think trying to connect deeply with someone where I think safety is in understanding, to have that intentionally or unintentionally rejected, I can sense that they don't feel safe going there. So in my mind, I can't trust. I can still feel empathy. I can still connect with them on a more superficial level and sort of fill in the blanks myself, kind of on what might be going on. But it definitely doesn't breed closeness to not have that be available to connect with. And I think this is the experience of a lot of women with partners, generally of previous generations, where I think there's more conversations now around mental health, around feelings, which is just incredible to see more and more people being open to it and exploring it for themselves. But I definitely have heard a lot of stories of like the pain and the loneliness of not having that available as a connection point. And also sometimes seeing a loved one, like seeing a loved one who is lost and who isn't open to love and who has given up. Yeah, just doesn't have faith. And it's like that person, you can help them up to a certain point, but they need to start becoming open to love themselves, which can be really hard when it's a loved one and you want the best for them, and maybe you're pouring love into them and they just aren't open. There's not
And
the
how does that make you
receptiveness.
feel? So that the next question is, well, if you're pouring love into someone, be it a partner or a loved one or a friend, and they're not, you could say reciprocating, they're not receiving, how does that make us feel? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, unloved comes to mind.
So then you can ask, well, is the love that you were giving them unconditional? Because actually, if unconditional love asks for nothing in return. And I'm not saying we can always do it all of the time, but my heart's role in let's say our relationship as friends, my heart's role is not to give you love so that you feel better. It's just to love you. That's it. It's just to love you, no matter what. And that's all we need. That you just keep doing that, essentially. And I know it might sound a little bit, but it's like, okay, well, let go of the buts, let go of the conditions, just show up with love. And that can be, but it can be challenging, especially when you see people, friends that are suffering, loved ones that are suffering. And you know that if they just are able to explore this thing, maybe open up a bit to me, maybe just show a little bit of their vulnerability, their life would be a lot easier, but that's just not possible. So then the challenge is, well, what do I do then? Because it's not for me to change them, it's for me to love them. So I just keep showing up. I just keep showing up and I listen. I give them my presence and I give them my attention to the best of my ability. There's no judgment. You just give. I just give. And people might think, well, yeah, but does that not hurt you? Well, yeah, it can do. But if I'm not expecting anything, if I don't need anything from them, then it doesn't really matter if they don't change the way that I was hoping for. Because I wasn't hoping for anything. I'm just available.
Yeah.
But that's the tricky thing about open-hearted love is that
it's very tricky.
Well, yeah, because could you imagine being in a romantic relationship where both parties are intentionally doing that? They're not saying, okay, well, I'm going to love you so that you do this thing that makes me feel this way. They just say, I'm going to love you. I'm just going to love you. No matter, and however it goes, but no matter how it goes, I'm still going to love you. And I'm not saying put up with instances of violence or abuse or anything like that. Absolutely not. Part of that love can be strong boundaries. It should be strong boundaries. But most of the time, relationships, especially romantic relationships, they're like quid pro quo, aren't they? Like, I do something so I get something back.
It's like a role mate relationship.
Yeah, it's like transactional, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's not fair on you, and it's not fair on the partner. So if I was to say to you, I'm going to love you if you're this way. How can someone else be what you expect them to be?
Yeah.
We are our own unfolding realities, aren't they? So then when you, let's say, have this difficult day at work and you come home and you're angry and you're upset, but your partner didn't want you to be like that, then that's it. It's like, oh, well, you've broken our love, you've broken our trust, you're not showing up in the way that I want you to, so I'm not going to love you as much, I'm going to hold it back. It's like, you can see how immediately you rift and go further apart. Whereas if we're just available, not expecting anything, the partner comes home and we can go, oh, wow, that sounds intense, tell me about it. I'm here for you.
To lean towards,
Absolutely,
not away from. And I think something also to introduce into this part of the conversation is, I think it's so beautiful and it benefits both people to be so open-hearted with love.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't have those expectations. But also I think your self-love has to be present at the same time of loving a difficult person, if that is the case you're
Definitely.
in. And I think sometimes the most loving thing to do is to create not separation but space between two people if you're not able to love them, or if they're hurting you as you're trying to give them love, you can't let go of your own self-love. And, you know, it's something beautiful in Buddhism, in sort of metta practice and the metta bhavana, is how this practice of opening your heart to everyone around you, but that includes you. And the sort of practice starts with love to yourself. And I think that's such an invaluable lesson to keep learning again and again and again, of not discounting ourselves to help others, but that the two work in tandem together.
Totally. And you hit the nail on the head there, didn't you? Because actually, if we don't have the resources of loving acceptance here, how can I accept and love someone else? It doesn't really work. It's going to be conditional, isn't it? Because one of those conditions were, I can only give you so much in a certain way because actually I don't have the capacity. So we've always got to start with us, but we don't know how to do it most of the time. You know, it takes a long time for people to show us, for us to open, for us to trust actually that we can do it. You know, like it feels safer to doubt that we're okay and we've got access to love than it does to plunge into a loving, connected moment often, because our mind thinks it's kept us safe all of our life. I mean, it hasn't. It kind of has sometimes, you know, in the cases of like maybe abuse or trauma, like having that buffer is kind of useful, but ultimately it's never truly kept us safe. You know, life's still unfolded to us. So it can be hard to let go of that doubting mind, because part of it is saying, no, don't trust that. Don't trust the feeling, the loving feeling of going into the moment. Stay up here. Let's problem solve. Let's think about it. Let's strategize. But you can see how in a relationship, that's hard, isn't it? If both parties are stuck in this like narrative of, oh, I'm doing this and they're doing this and they did this, I don't like the way they did that, oh, I wish they did that differently, they don't love me anymore. It always kind of comes down to, they probably don't love me. You know, it's like, oh, they don't love me as much as they should do. And
it's kind of like a right and wrong paradigm.
Totally,
a black and white thing of you did the wrong thing.
It just results in turmoil, doesn't it? Whereas actually two people standing up on their own 2 feet, looking after themselves and giving themselves love, putting their own well-being primary and dedicating themselves to their own well-being while sharing their love with somebody else. That's a beautiful thing, and it's a strong structure. So there's a guy that I really like who talked about different types of relationship, romantic relationship. He talked about an A-frame relationship. That's kind of like that, as opposed to an H-frame relationship. I can't do an H properly. No, it doesn't really work, does it? But so the A-frame relationship is where you are connected, but you're leaning on each other for support, and that's inherently unstable, because if one person is lacking capacity and the other person's pushing, it'll fall over. Oh, sorry, microphone. It'll be too much. It can't survive. It's codependent. Whereas shared independence, we are connected at all times, yet we are our own responsibility. You know, we're able to share that love with each other, but we are responsible for ourselves at all times. And that has got stability, it's got strength. But it's hard because it takes authenticity and vulnerability. Because it for me to really own my shit in any circumstance, but especially in a relationship, I've got to say to my partner, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm scared, help. Like, nobody wants to do that, do they?
Vulnerability.
Yeah, exactly. Takes. Because actually, there is always a risk in the mind that if I do that, I'll lose it. If I show that I'm really vulnerable, that I'm not this together person that I portray, that I really do need a bit of support, if I show that, I'll be rejected. You know, and that's so common in so many people. So we just kind of like squash it all down, but then project expectations on someone else to heal this thing that we've never even shown. You know, it's very kind of psychotic in a way. It's like, well, not psychotic, it's like delusional is probably the right word. But yeah, if we just show up for ourselves and show up for each other with truthfulness and authenticity, and just trust that, you know, let's say we're in a relationship and I show you, listen, this is where I'm struggling at the moment and I don't know what to do with it. And you know what? I get annoyed when this thing happens. I'm taking a risk. But I also trust that if it doesn't work out, if you reject me, let's say, because of that, I'll be okay because I'm stood on my own 2 feet. I'm not leaning on you. I don't need you to be okay. And I'm already upright.
The beautiful thing is you give the other person a chance to show their love for you.
Exactly.
It's like that's the power of vulnerability allow people to support you when you need.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
If you can have that experience in life, it's a beautiful thing. And I think, and I guess the question is, well, how do you do that? What do you reckon? Do you know?
What do you think, Ben? This is what you do.
Yeah, I know. I asked for this, didn't I? Like, so I guess where would you start? But having a conversation, it always starts with communication, honest communication, doesn't it? So why not, if you're in a relationship or if you're starting a relationship, don't make it too heavy on the second date, but like if you're going into something that's got legs, why not have an open conversation? Say, listen, this is how I want to live my life. These things are important to me. This is how I want us to connect. Are you on board? And if you are, well, we need to take account for ourselves, and we need to hold each other to account to make sure that's happening. So if I can see that you or the partner's being really codependent and having unrealistic expectations on me, then because we've had that conversation at the beginning, it's known that I can say that this is not okay, So we set the ground with honesty to begin with. I mean, it's challenging, but you could just always take the sign that, well, if they say no, then it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, that's so important.
They're not the person for you. If that's how you want to consciously live your life in a supportive, non-codependent loving relationship, and you say that and somebody says no, it's like, well, it's not possible, is it?
Yeah, and I think it's also relying on the abundant nature of the world around us. And I think part of why people put up with relationships that aren't right for them is a fear that there'll be no one else out there.
Definitely.
Or
that we need somebody else. That's the biggest fear. That's the biggest fear, is that there's no one else out there. Well, implicit to that is that I need someone else, or I need someone other than this experience in order to feel okay. And if they go, this abusive partner, as an example, if they go, then I've got no one. So it's better to be abused and be in pain than it is to be alone, because I don't have any access to love then. Even though we can see that we don't really have access to love in that dysfunctional relationship. So yeah, it's challenging. It's super tricky, isn't it? Like it's not straightforward. I don't claim to have the answers, by the way. No. It's something I've been exploring in my own life, and I continue to work on it. But yeah, that courage and vulnerability and honesty, if you make those forefront in your experience, that seems to be the most supportive conditions for that kind of way of being, I think.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's like this almost irony that the more you let go and the more you're present, love arises. And also, not exclusive to that, but also love is the trickiest thing to navigate and to heal alongside someone else when you're relearning to do that.
Definitely.
So it's quite interesting. But, we've talked about meditation and how that's a great way to come to the present moment, to allow that love to arise and to refuel something deeper within us. So I'm wondering if you would lead us into a short meditation.
How exciting.
Would you do that?
I'd love to.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
It's a nice treat for anyone listening.
Well, hopefully it'll be a treat, And I guess I pointed to this earlier when I spoke about these simple activities of inviting feeling, because that's really what we're trying to do. So in meditation, we're not trying to make something happen. We're opening to the way it is, however it is, just with gentleness and calmness. Now, luckily, this is already happening. So you don't have to try so hard. And that's kind of nice, isn't it? It's like I don't have to make it be a certain way, because that's like effort. I can just go, oh, how is it right now? So usually I would invite people to sit or lie down, just get comfy, basically. The most important aspect of rest and meditation is to let the body feel comfortable. So some people think, oh, I need to sit in full lotus in a perfect posture. I mean, that you don't need to do that, basically. I mean, we are living beings, and it means our posture is a living posture. So it moves a bit. So if you move, you're okay. So just settle down. And if you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. If you want to keep them open, maybe just look at the space about 4 or 5 feet in front of you. Just soften your gaze. And we're going to give ourselves a chance to just rest from trying to make life happen. To just rest from trying to fix ourselves, fix the rest of the world, fix other people. See if you can just invite yourself to say, you know what, for these 5 minutes, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to let that go. Take a deep breath in. Just let it go on the out breath. And if you can feel that resting, comfortable body, with each out breath, just finding a bit more rest, a bit less holding. Just soften. Now you will probably notice thoughts arising. That is natural. We're not here to battle our thoughts. So just say to yourself or to your thoughts, it's okay, you're welcome here too. We don't need to get rid of them, push them away. It's just a part of what we're experiencing now. So with that, we can explore, well, other than thoughts, which are coming and going, what is the experience? Where can we look? And touch, feeling, sensation is probably one of the best places to drop into because it's really readily available. So the thoughts are just unfolding, we're leaving them be. But then we notice, oh, I'm sat and there's contact. Maybe the buttocks on the chair or feet on the floor. Maybe the legs, hands on the laps. We can feel apparent contact in this experience. And we don't need to do anything about it. We just open to it. And we can notice as well that there's more than just contact to be felt. There's movement, subtle movement. Maybe the belly rising and falling with the breath. Maybe our clothes moving against our skin. Maybe there's a breeze that we can feel on our skin. Or a temperature might feel a little chilly or a bit warm. We're not concerned about trying to say how it is right now. We're just watching and noticing, oh, it feels like this. And I don't need to do anything about this to make it unfold. Everything is looking after itself. And when we feel that, we can really rest. We can go, oh, it's all taking care of itself. Oh, just rest. You might notice the same for sound. These words, the sounds in the room, outside, they're just coming and going. Like the sensations of the body, they're coming and going. Totally naturally. We don't need to make sound itself. We don't need to try to hear. Sound is heard. All on its own, and it's gone. Effortless unfolding, inviting us again to just rest. So we're beginning to know experience in this moment more than just a thought about what it is. Like I said, the thoughts are going to try and contextualize, and that's okay. We can feel that there's more to this than the thoughts about it. We can feel it in our fingers, in our feet. With each breath we take in, it's like, oh, there's this. And with that wakeful, knowing, gentle awareness, we realize that we don't need to be in meditation to feel this. I didn't make this awake feeling happen. I didn't cause myself to be aware of this. There's just awareness of this. So whether sat in meditation or with your eyes open, we can begin to notice, oh, I can feel this. I can feel what life is like in any given moment. So in your own time, open your eyes and just see if you can invite that sense of exploration and feeling into the moment without trying to find anything, just letting ourselves be shown how it is. Through our sensations, the sounds, the sights. I mean, as you open your eyes, you'll go, oh, there's a visual world. Wow, like there's a lot to see, isn't there? So let's just open to that as well. And we can encourage this to be online all the time, all day. We're just inviting this richer experience of life to show itself moment by moment.
Thank you so much, Ben. What a treat and a beautiful reminder to just be in the moment and how alive the present moment is. Whether we're aware of it or not, it's all right here and ready for us to access whenever we create the space to. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just what a beautiful conversation. It's such a gift being a friend with you. And
I feel the same.
Thank you so much.
I value our friendship very deeply. So yeah. And if anybody has any questions about this kind of stuff,
how can people find you?
People can find me. So I have a YouTube channel called Awake Here and Now. So people can, there's probably about 100 videos on there now, and it's growing. It's like a resource basically to explore mental health, awakening, maybe trauma healing, those kind of things. And also I have an Instagram account. It's awake.hereandnow. And you can direct message me on that. So if you do have any questions, you can message me directly. Or, I also offer one-to-one sessions for people on the path of awakening. So this is usually people that have begun the process a little. They've started investigating what the self is, what they are more than the self, doing a bit of exploration, bit of meditation, but they want some guidance, some side-by-side kind of compassionate guidance, and I offer that for people as well. So,
Wonderful.
if you're interested, just message.
Thank you so much, Bern.
Thanks.
Simon.
Simon, Bern,
Simon,
either
Bern,
way. Yeah.
all the nicknames. But yeah, really enjoyed having you on. Thank you for the conversation. Love to have you back on as well.
Anytime.
And yeah, thank you to everyone listening.
Thank you. Bye.
And we'll see you soon. Thank you.